Welcome to a journey that goes far beyond grammar and pronunciation. A journey into the psychology of English fluency. Have you ever wanted to speak English confidently, but felt your heart race and your voice disappear the moment you tried? Have you ever stayed quiet, even when your mind was full of the right words? You're not alone. Every English learner has faced that same silent struggle. The fear of being judged, the shame of mistakes, the longing to express themselves freely. This isn't just about learning a language. It's about understanding what happens inside your mind and heart when you try to speak. In this story, you'll discover how emotions, self-belief, and hidden fears shape your fluency more than any grammar rule ever could. And by the end, you'll see that fluency isn't something you learn, it's something you become. If you've ever sat in front of someone speaking fluent English, watching their words flow like music while you struggle to form a single correct sentence, you've probably felt that quiet ache inside. That mix of admiration and self-doubt. You tell yourself, if only I could speak like that, if only my mind worked that fast. But here's the truth no one tells you. Fluency doesn't begin with your tongue. It begins with your mind. Every English learner begins their journey not with grammar books or vocabulary lists, but with fear. Fear of being laughed at. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of sounding foolish. And that fear builds an invisible wall between your thoughts and your words. You might know the words. You might remember the grammar. But when you open your mouth, something freezes inside. Your heartbeat races, your throat tightens, and your mind goes blank. Because your brain has connected English, not with curiosity or expression, but with danger. Your nervous system reacts as if you're facing a tiger, not a conversation. This is where psychology enters the picture. Your fluency is not just about language. It's about how your brain feels when you speak. Amir was 26 when he decided he had had enough of hiding. He lived in a small town and had always dreamed of working in an international company. His skills were strong, his ideas were sharp, but his English was weak. Whenever meetings were held in English, Amir stayed silent. He smiled politely, nodded often, and prayed no one would ask him a question. Inside, his self-worth was crumbling. I know what I want to say, he told me once, but my words get stuck in my throat. It's like my mind betrays me. One day, during a meeting, his manager asked, Amir, what do you think? Everyone turned toward him. His palms went sweaty. He tried to speak. His voice shook. A few coworkers laughed softly, not cruelly, but enough for the sound to echo in his head for months. That night, Amir didn't sleep. He replayed that moment again and again, thinking, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'll never speak English like them. But that night, something inside him also changed. He decided he wouldn't let fear own his voice anymore. He started recording himself speaking English every night, just for 1 minute. The first few times were awful. His accent was heavy, his words tangled. But he didn't stop. Over time, something magical began to happen. Not in his grammar, not in his vocabulary, but in his brain. When Amir practiced speaking daily, he wasn't just learning English. He was retraining his emotional brain. In psychology, this process is called desensitization, gradually teaching your mind that the thing you fear, speaking English, is actually safe. Each time Amir spoke, his brain received a new message. See? You spoke. Nothing bad happened. You're safe. That small message, repeated hundreds of times, changed everything. His fear started to shrink. His confidence started to grow. And that is the real foundation of fluency. Because the moment your brain feels safe, your thoughts flow naturally. You stop thinking about grammar. You stop worrying about mistakes. You just communicate. That's the secret psychology of English fluency. It's not just a skill, it's a state of emotional freedom. Inside every learner, there's a small voice that whispers, "Don't speak. You'll sound stupid. They'll laugh at you. You're too old to learn now." That voice isn't your enemy. It's your fear trying to protect you. Your brain doesn't hate you. It just remembers every painful moment you were embarrassed, every time someone corrected you harshly, every time you froze in public. The brain's job is survival. So it says, let's stay quiet. Let's stay safe. But growth never happens in safety. It happens in courage. Fluency begins when you talk back to that voice. When you say, "Thank you for trying to protect me, but I'm ready to speak anyway." Every time you speak despite fear, your confidence muscle grows. And soon, that inner critic turns into a cheerleader. Many learners chase perfection, flawless grammar, native accent, perfect pronunciation. But psychology shows that perfectionism is one of the biggest fluency killers. When you focus too much on correctness, your brain shifts from automatic mode, flow, to analytical mode, fear. You start analyzing every word before you speak, and the result is hesitation. Fluency isn't about speaking perfect English. It's about thinking less and expressing more. Look at children. They make grammar mistakes all the time, yet we call them fluent because they're confident. The same applies to adults. You can be fluent even with mistakes, as long as your thoughts move freely. Amir learned this too. He stopped caring about his accent and started caring about connection. He realized that people didn't want perfect English. They wanted real connection, honesty, and emotion in conversation. Once he embraced imperfection, his fluency exploded. Here's a technique from psychological training that helped Amir and thousands of learners. It's simple but powerful. Every morning, he stood in front of a mirror and said, "I am not learning English. I am becoming confident." Then he spoke one small story about his day, his feelings, or his dreams. At first, it felt awkward, but slowly he began to see his reflection differently, not as a shy learner, but as a person who had a voice. In psychology, this is called self-reprogramming, changing how your subconscious sees you. When you practice this, your brain starts believing, "I am a speaker." And once your brain believes that, fluency follows naturally. Language is not just communication, it's emotion in motion. When you speak your native language, you feel safe. Words come from the heart. But when you switch to English, your emotional connection breaks. That's why your speech sounds robotic or forced, not because you don't know English, but because your emotional brain isn't connected to the language yet. To fix that, you must build emotional experiences in English. Watch movies that move you. Listen to motivational stories. Write your thoughts in English. Cry, laugh, and feel, but do it in English. When you emotionally connect with the language, your brain stops seeing it as foreign. It becomes part of your identity. And once it's part of who you are, fluency becomes effortless. 6 months later, Amir got another chance to speak in a company meeting. This time, his heart still raced, but he took a deep breath and spoke anyway. His sentences weren't perfect. He forgot a few words. But he finished. And when he looked up, his manager smiled and said, "Good job, Amir. Clear and confident." That was the moment Amir's eyes filled with tears. Not because of the compliment, but because he realized he had finally broken free. He wasn't chasing fluency anymore. He was living it. Amir's journey shows that English fluency is 80% emotional and only 20% technical. If your mind is afraid, no grammar book can help. But if your heart is free, your English will naturally improve every day. So before you chase vocabulary lists or fancy accent courses, pause and ask yourself, what emotion controls my fluency? Is it fear, shame, perfectionism, or excitement, curiosity, and self-belief? Whatever emotion you feed, your fluency will follow. Amir's story is not unique. It's the story of millions who hide their voices because of fear. But it's also a reminder, you can rewire your brain. Psychology teaches us that every thought you repeat rewires your mind. So if you keep saying, I'm bad at English, your brain builds that truth. But if you start saying, I'm improving every day, your brain builds that truth instead. Every word you tell yourself is a seed. And the more positive words you plant, the stronger your fluency grows. When Amir looked back on his journey, he realized something profound. The biggest change wasn't in his words, it was in his identity. He was no longer a man trying to learn English. He had become someone who could express himself confidently, someone who no longer hid behind silence. This is the deepest layer of fluency, not just how you speak, but who you believe you are when you speak. Most learners think fluency is about learning new words, but it's really about unlearning fear. It's about changing your self-image from, I'm not fluent, to, I am becoming fluent. That single shift transforms everything. For years, Amir had thought of himself as a shy man who wasn't good at English. Even when he studied hard, that belief held him back. He'd sit in meetings and tell himself, you're not good enough. Don't speak. But after months of small wins, of talking to himself in the mirror, of speaking to friends in short English sentences, he noticed that his inner dialogue had changed. His brain had been rewired, not just through words, but through emotion. One evening, he recorded a video message to himself. In that message, he said, I'm not the same person anymore. I'm not afraid to sound imperfect. I'm not afraid to try. When he watched that video a few weeks later, he cried. Because he could see it, the confidence in his eyes, the life in his tone, the strength in his words. And that's the secret truth about fluency that very few people talk about. It's not just about speaking English, it's about becoming someone new inside. Every person learning English carries invisible memories, maybe of being laughed at, maybe of failing an exam, maybe of being corrected harshly. These memories become emotional blocks that live deep in your subconscious. When you open your mouth to speak, your brain doesn't just recall grammar, it recalls pain. That's why so many people can write in English but freeze when they have to speak, because speaking activates emotion. But here's the beautiful part. Emotion can also heal. You can overwrite those painful memories with new, empowering ones. Every time you speak English in a positive situation, you create a new emotional connection. That's why it's so important to surround yourself with supportive people, people who encourage you, not judge you. Your brain learns safety through connection. If you only speak English with people who criticize you, your fear will grow. But if you speak with those who smile, who listen, who celebrate your effort, your confidence will bloom. So the next time you speak English, remember, you're not just practicing pronunciation. You're teaching your brain that it's safe to express itself. Fluency is emotional repetition. It's not about how many words you know, but how many times you've dared to use them. Think about it. When you first learned to ride a bicycle, you were afraid to fall. Your muscles trembled. You overthought every move. But after enough practice, your body learned balance. You stopped thinking, you just rode. English fluency is the same. You need enough emotional rides to teach your brain that speaking is normal, not dangerous. Every time you speak English, even if it's just ordering coffee, talking to yourself, or leaving a short voice message, your mind becomes freer. Those small steps are psychological victories. And when you collect enough of them, they form a new identity. One day, Amir got a message from his manager asking him to lead a presentation in English for a group of foreign clients. For a moment, his old fear whispered again, "You'll make mistakes." But this time he smiled. "Yes," he thought, "I probably will. But I'll still speak." He spent a week preparing, practicing in front of the mirror, visualizing himself standing confidently. On the day of the presentation, he walked into the room with calm energy. His voice shook a little at first, but then his passion took over. He spoke from the heart, not from fear. His English wasn't perfect, but it was alive. He saw the clients nodding, listening, understanding. When he finished, the room filled with applause. His manager came up, shook his hand, and said, "Amir, your confidence was inspiring." That night, Amir sat alone in his car, looking at his reflection in the mirror, the same mirror where he once stood trembling. He smiled and whispered, "You did it." And that's when it hit him. He was no longer learning English. He had become the person he once dreamed of being. Fluency, at its core, is not about language. It's about freedom. Freedom to express your thoughts, your emotions, your dreams in any tongue. The human brain is wired for communication. When you silence yourself out of fear, you block not just language, but life. Every idea unsaid, every emotion unspoken, they pile up inside, making you smaller. But when you find your voice, when you start speaking even imperfectly, you reconnect with your power. You become alive again. So here's a truth to hold close. Fluency is not a goal. It's a journey of emotional healing. Each time you speak, you're not just practicing English. You're telling your mind, "I deserve to be heard." If you ever feel like giving up, remember Amir. Remember the nights he recorded shaky sentences, the laughter he faced, the fear he overcame. Remember that fluency isn't born from talent. It's built from persistence and love for growth. And remember this, your accent is not a mistake, it's your identity. It tells the story of where you come from, the strength of your journey, the courage it took to learn something new. Don't hide it. Celebrate it. The world doesn't need another perfect English speaker. It needs people who speak with heart, who bring humanity into every word. When you speak English with emotion, with honesty, with your real self, that's when fluency shines. There's one last thing psychology teaches us. Your brain doesn't believe what you tell it once. It believes what you tell it repeatedly. So repeat this every morning. I'm not afraid to speak. I am growing. I am improving. I have a voice, and my voice matters. Say it while you look in the mirror. Say it when you walk. Say it when you feel nervous. Because those words are not just affirmations. They are seeds of transformation. Each repetition reshapes your subconscious, replacing fear with faith. And one day, without realizing it, you'll start speaking English naturally. Not because you forced it, but because your mind finally feels safe to be itself. Months after his big presentation, Amir received a promotion. But what mattered more to him wasn't the new title or salary, it was the fact that he had found peace with himself. He had learned the psychology of fluency, but more importantly, he had learned the psychology of courage. He once said, "English gave me more than a language. It gave me confidence, it gave me voice, it gave me freedom." And that's what fluency truly means, the ability to express who you are without fear, in any language, anywhere in the world. So if you're reading this today, remember this simple truth. You already have everything you need to become fluent: your mind, your heart, and your story. The rest is just practice. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be brave enough to begin, again and again, until fear turns into flow. Every mistake you make is proof that you are trying, and every attempt you make is a step closer to freedom. Keep speaking, keep feeling, keep believing. Your voice matters. Your story deserves to be heard, in English and beyond. If this story touched your heart and inspired you to see fluency in a new light, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends and family who are also on their English journey. Let them know they are not alone, because every learner's story begins with fear, but can end with freedom. You have the power to change your story, one word, one thought, one brave sentence at a time. Keep shining, keep learning, and remember, your voice is your power.